Yo, check out this quarantine hair going on here. Hello and welcome finally to the second update for my upcoming musical project 3113. Before I get too far into this, I do want to say that I am still technically taking a break. I know that I uploaded like a video every week still basically since saying that, but one of them was supposed to come out the week before and I just forgot to upload it, and the other one was the online stream for my Smash tournament, so I don't really count that. What I was trying to say is basically 4 minutes 4 and Smash movesets and things like that aren't going to come back for a few weeks still. I am kind of getting everything together. I have a couple 4 minutes 4 scripts, some Smash movesets that I'm cooking up. We're talking about the next episode of Ready Moveset Go. So those things are coming, but I still do need a couple more weeks just to get everything in order, finish the games that I'm playing that I want to review or use for movesets, things like that, before I come back fully. Maybe I'm just bad at taking a break. But coming back to the topic at hand, I finally wanted to talk about my progress on 3113. I made a video talking about it a while ago. I think I said it was going to be out by the end of 2020. Probably not going to happen at this point, but you know, there's still half the year left, but what a year it's been. Basically, the main progress I've done up to this point is that I've made acoustic demos for all of the main songs. I didn't do them for the intro and the interlude song that you'll see back in that first update, just because those are a lot more produced and there's no vocals or anything to those, even in my final idea for them, so there wasn't really a point to do them acoustically. But for the actual full songs from 3113, I made acoustic demos basically so I could kind of hear them better, see how they were all feeling, as well as try to actually apply the vocals and, you know, the melody and lyrics to everything and see how it all sounded. I originally shared the demos only on Facebook and Twitter, and that was because I didn't feel it was really ready to come to YouTube yet, mainly because I didn't record vocals for them. Well, I did record vocals for them, but they weren't good enough, and so I didn't share them. But I figured, you know, maybe the people who are really following what I'm doing, the people who actually like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, they might be interested in seeing these instrumental-only versions of the songs. But I actually got a lot of really positive, nice feedback from basically all of the songs from a bunch of different people. So along with a little nudging from my friend PK King, I decided that I would upload the 8 demos to YouTube. Those demos will go live on the channel very shortly after this video comes up. With this video, I figured I would do 2 things. I would, 1, tell you that those acoustic demos are coming and to go check them out, and 2, talk about the songs in a little more depth than I was able to in my Twitter and Facebook posts. So to lay the groundwork for what you're going to be hearing, as I said, these are acoustic demos. It's all acoustic guitar. It's me playing cajon for the first time, which went okay, as well as electric bass, which I've recorded straight through a DI, some MIDI synths here and there that I'll talk about specifically because usually I use them to place hold for certain other instruments in the real versions, and some shaker. There are no full vocal lead melodies or anything like that on these songs, and on most of the songs there's not even a lead melody played on some other instrument, just to give you the idea. Like I said, these are pretty rough. But since I'm re-uploading them to YouTube, I figured I will put my current lyrics in the description of all the songs if you want to check them out and tell me if you think they're good or not. It probably won't give you a great idea of how they're actually going to fit into the full song, but it might help you just understand the emotion of the song. So let's get into the songs. The song that I plan to be the first full song on the album right after the intro is called Tomorrow Today. This one is a pretty straightforward kind of pop rock song. The acoustic guitar part that is in the demos is supposed to be electric guitar with a lot of delay and feel really big, I guess kind of U2-y, along with some driving tom-heavy drums, similar to something I guess like the intro to Move Along by All American Rejects. The song is definitely built around that main guitar part, so it transfers over to acoustic pretty well. In the final version, most of it will probably just be trying to find ways to add different layers of guitars or synths and things like that. It's not the most complex song, but it is a fun one to play. I like it as an intro. The synth sound at the end of the song is definitely a placeholder, but it will still be synth in the actual recording. Not a ton to say about this one. It is just a pleasant little song entirely built around the guitar and kind of that main progression. Lyrically, if you look into it, it's mostly about optimism, trying to move forward and trying to seize the day kind of song. To give you a little background, 3113 is a compilation of older songs that I've kind of reworked and want to release. Some of them go as far back as me in high school. So for me, this whole album is kind of just like portions of me when I was younger and different emotions and things that I felt as I was growing up. So naturally, the beginning of the album with songs like Tomorrow Today starts a little more optimistic and naive, and then it gets closer to the feelings that I was expressing on Tourist Tales, which leads me into the next song, which is Highway. This is one of the older songs, and as I've said before, this is a song that has been released with my old band Matchstick Men, so you can go check out a finished version of it. But I really wanted to do it again because I love the song. I think it's one of the best ones that I've written, and I just wanted to give it the production it deserved, as well as fine-tune it a little bit, like cutting out the weird drum call and response that happens right before the last chorus. This one is, I guess, a little Springsteen-y, definitely keeping up the pop rock feel. Definitely some influences from bands like Oberhofer, which I was listening to at the time of writing this originally. Basically a pop rock song with a lot of really reverby, surfy guitars. On this song, this is one of the two, I think, songs that still have the vocoder parts, which was built around vocal performances that I did do, and then I used the vocoder to either fill in for background harmonies that other band members would do, or it was parts that would be vocoder in the final version in my head. And this is an example of the former. Again, if you listen to the old Matchstick Men recording, you can hear the other guys in the band doing those parts, but I figured just so it didn't sound like me a bunch of times, I figured I would throw myself into the vocoder and use that for the background harmonies. But yeah, this one is really close to what the final version would be, honestly. Again, just it would add a couple layers to make it fill out in production, and lyrically it's another pretty optimistic, happy song. It's more about, you know, seeing your friends and your loved ones and having to leave, and you know, it always sucks leaving a really nice time hanging out with them, but you know it's nice because they'll be there when you come back. I'm pretty sure this one came around from going to drop my girlfriend back off at her house, and we were, you know, driving down the highway in the city. So moving on to the next song, we start to get in a little darker territory mentally with Shadowboxing. This is one of the newer songs on here. I wrote this in my senior year in a songwriting class. This one gets a surprising amount of praise because it in my mind, I guess because I know with the lyrics and the vocals and how it all fits together, it's probably one of the weaker ones to me in this group of 8 songs, but a lot of people really like it. And actually, I mentioned PK King earlier. He asked if he could use this in the background of one of his videos discussing his Rivals of Aether OC, so you should definitely go check that out. This is a song using boxing, and specifically shadow boxing, which is, you know, practicing against the shadow of yourself or fighting against yourself in the mirror. Uses that as a framework to talk about depression and, you know, fighting yourself basically, and your mind getting the better of you. Instrumentally, it pulls from a bunch of different places. The main guitar rhythm sections in this demo are supposed to be piano. So really the whole song is driven by piano, bass, and drums, and then it's accented by electric guitar that gets really big on the choruses, as well as horns that kind of go throughout. It takes from a bunch of different things, like Panic at the Disco was definitely an influence for the sound, as well as, I guess, a couple songs from Watsky, and Watsky definitely influences the vocal performance. Originally, it was the melody that you hear on the acoustic guitar in the verses, but then I wanted to take it in a little bit of a different direction and do the verses in more of a rap-oriented way. I'm not sure which one I'll land on for the final product. Maybe I'll do both and throw them up here and see which one people like more. I also tried to take a couple little cheeky references to boxing stuff throughout the song. On the chorus, it does the Rocky Gonna Fly Now thing, like ba-da-ba, but changes it a little bit. As well as the pre-chorus, the chords were kind of built around Little Mac's theme from Punch-Out! So, you know, just fun little instrumental things there. But yeah, even though I definitely like other songs in these demos more than this one, the rhythm is really fun. I love playing the bass part. So, you know, it is a pretty fun song. After that is the newest song that I had written for these demos, which is currently called Separation Anxiety. I don't really like that name for it. It just, I don't know. I mean, it fits the theme of the song, but I feel like it should be something catchier. This one is another one that I like a little less in the demos, just because it is kind of repetitive without the vocal performance. It's definitely supposed to be very folk punky, along with a couple elements of ska and rock here and there. Kind of repetitive acoustic chords and bass lines going throughout the song, but it's all meant to just progress the emotion and the story being told through the vocals. I mentioned some ska elements, and there definitely will be horns on on this one in the final version too. I only did a couple parts as placeholders for the horns in the demos, which you can see during the guitar solo, and at the end of the song, those MIDI keyboards are supposed to be at least the very, very basic horn parts that I'm imagining. Just like Tomorrow Today, I don't have a ton to say about this one. Lyrically, it is about me having to leave college, basically. I wrote this the night before having to move out of my apartment and move back home, and was basically just expressing my emotions about not wanting to leave, feeling like I was leaving, this new family that I was just kind of getting a hold of. So now moving into the second half, we get probably my other favorite song that I've done besides Highway, which is Simple. The name Simple literally just comes from the fact that I've had this riff for a while, and I always just thought, it's a pretty simple song. It's supposed to be the riff and then the chorus, and that's really it. So that's where the name came from. I wanted it to be kind of just a simple heartbreak song. Really in the straight up kind of classic rock vibe, or, 80s rock feel. Similar to something, I think his name is Jeff Kahn, something like that, the breakup song, or maybe some Tom Petty stuff like that. This one also transfers over to the acoustic demos really well. The lead acoustic guitar is very much what I want the electric guitar to sound like, and there will still definitely be acoustic elements in the final version. The bass is pretty much what I want to be, as is the cajon beat. And then the synth part, which features primarily after the first chorus, is going to be more of a rocky organ in the final version. I do also have some plans to extend the solo section of this song and maybe get a little weirder with it to allow just for some fun interactions between the guitar and the organ, and let the organ feature in the solo. I think that would be pretty fun. But yeah, simple. It's just a pretty basic heartbreak song. Lyrically, it uses a couple different metaphors to get the point across about not realizing that things are falling apart, or it's not how you thought it would be at the beginning of a relationship or something like that. Next is kind of the softest song and the weirdest song on 3113, which is called Night and Ice. This was another college song that I had the idea for on kind of a contemplative walk that I was taking one night at college after it had just snowed. I love snow. This one's really weird. It's in 5/4, and it's mixing a bunch of different elements, which will come across a lot more in the final version. The guitar is very spacey and trippy with the weird chords I'm doing. The bass is meant to be really highly produced and thick, like a Billie Eilish song, and then the drums being a little more rattly and jazzy. And then later in the song, the instrumentation would expand to include maybe some strings and some woodwinds on the verse, and then there's the one part right before it goes back to the main part that ends the song that would bring in a bunch of really punchy, swingy brass. So a bunch of different elements to the song, and probably this transfers over to acoustic demos the worst, just because there are all these elements, a lot of which I didn't even try to replicate through the synths because they're not really written yet. And then the cajon just doesn't really do the service of like the really roomy drum set that I'm imagining. After that, we go a lot more simple, a lot more straightforward with the straight up pop punk song, which is called Candy Rocks currently. I think for this one, the concept and the name actually might have come first. I mentioned this in the first update. It's basically supposed to be a really sugary, over the top, just like lovey love song basically. So I think the name came first on this one just to kind of fit that theme, and then I started writing the main riff because that was the other thing I wanted this song to focus on. So like I said, instrumentally it's very straightforward pop punk, kind of just a smaller band sound driven by the guitar and bass and drum with a little bit of synth thrown in there. I tried to add a couple weird changes in the chords and then the solo just to kind of make it a little more interesting, add in some MyChem elements. The solo, by the way, which I did not record for the acoustic demos because in my head I imagine it really just like shredding and going nuts on that section right before the quiet part later in the song. Basically, I just want the guitar to go nuts, and honestly I just haven't kept up the speed, haven't been practicing enough to do that yet, especially on an acoustic guitar. This is also a song where the lyrics I'm not entirely set on right now. I've reworked this song a lot, mostly to try to get a better vocal performance out of myself, but also just because I really wasn't happy with how the lyrics were sitting in the song. So I've kept a lot of the core words and feelings, but just kind of changed around rhythms and notation, things like that. The chorus I'm really happy with at this point. Mainly, my problem with it right now is the second verse I'm not too big on. But I think the first verse and the choruses and stuff like that, I'm pretty happy with right now. So again, the lyrics are going to be in the descriptions of the video, so definitely check it out. If you think it's good or bad, let me know. But yeah, this is definitely intended to be the most, not aggressive, but just the most high energy song on 3113. And finally, we have The Traveler. The Traveler is interesting because, like I said earlier, this whole album is songs that came from earlier in my life, so I wanted them to kind of portray my progression as a person. And although I said that some of these were during college and some of these were actually written after Tourist Tales, in my mind, this is kind of a prequel to Tourist Tales in a way. The Traveler uses a lot of the same themes that are the core tenets of Tourist Tales, which is not feeling like I belong, feeling like I need to constantly be searching for myself. So in the context, at this point in 3113 is kind of like me leaving for college, I guess. But instrumentally, it's a lot more of a jam. It's definitely a mix of rock, some newer sounds and some older sounds, as well as a huge influence from funk and like funk rock, which very much comes in on the later half of the song. There's going to be a huge solo break, which I kind of did in the demo recording. It mostly just focused on the bass doing its own thing, but in my head, that whole section is pretty long. This would definitely be the longest song on 3113, and there could be tons of room for, different brass instruments to get solos, tons of percussion breaks, guitar solo, lots of room to do really cool things with. I really like this song as well. It's another one that I've had for a while, and it's another one that went through a lot of reworks. The vocal performance I kind of turned to, it was originally very, very different, and I would say reminiscent of like the kind of quiet verses of a Breaking Benjamin song, but I changed the direction to keep the energy up higher, to keep it a little bit more gritty and angsty, I guess. So I kind of took cues from the vocal performance of 00 by Gerard Way, contrasting those like lighter classic rock elements with like some dirty fuzz and stuff going on. The song also ends on like a really weird note, kind of just like dead stopping in the middle of a chord, and as I said, that is kind of fitting the theme of like just leaving and then it's like gone and over. And that is the last song on 3113, which at this point, I guess I'll kind of talk about another musical idea I have right now. I know I haven't even finished remotely 3113, but I already have an idea for another album. Okay, so hear me out. So 3113 took a lot longer than I thought it would. Just for a bunch of different reasons, not even related to the world falling apart right now, but just it's been really hard to find people to collaborate with, honestly, and I don't like writing these songs that are kind of intended for bands on my own. It feels like I look back at my time in Match the Command or doing stuff at school, and it was always nice getting somebody else's ear and performance on it just to kind of add their own style to it. And as I said, I've been rewriting a bunch of things. I spent a while just trying to get vocal performances out of myself for the demos and wasn't happy with how they were, which is why I was so hesitant to post anything. But speaking of the world falling apart, my next album is kind of about that. I have an idea for a concept album, basically, that would be telling a very specific story of the character that you see on the cover of Tourist Tales, which in my head has a couple different names. You can call him the Tourist, the Traveler, and some other stuff that would come up in the album. Doesn't matter, it's all conceptual right now. Either way, I started building this whole story around the character that mirrors what it felt like for me growing up, then being in college, and then leaving college to enter the real world. And then obviously everything went to hell. So it's definitely the darkest thing that I will have written. Takes a lot more cues from My Chem, which really my music hasn't done a lot, despite them being my favorite band. But I figured if they're my favorite band, maybe I should try to take that emotion and energy that they bring to me and try to convert it into something else and something that is written for this moment right now. And that ties into Tourist Tales and 3113 because to me, they're all the same story. 3113 is the story of this character growing up and eventually leaving to go to space, quite literally, which is where Tourist Tales takes place, and then he leaves and comes back, and that would be that third album, which I'm currently calling Reentry. So nothing to share on that right now. I just literally wanted to throw it out there that that's something I'm working on, and maybe because most of the songs on 3113 are basically written and done, it's more about just like recording them and really finding them in that recording. I wouldn't be surprised if 3113 and Reentry came out not too far apart at this point. But either way, that is all I have to share from 3113 right now, so go check out those demos. Let me know what you think, which one is your favorite. Check out the lyrics and tell me what you like and what you don't like. If they go over really well, maybe I will try to do some vocal performances for them. Again, I'm not the strongest vocalist, but at least it would give you an idea of what I want these songs to be. So let me know what you think, and again, thank you for watching.